Hello and welcome to my Sonic Adventure 3 playstyle series. These are a series of videos in which I attempt to revitalise the adventure gameplay of past games for a theoretical new entry. For this purpose, I have selected a few characters to return to the playable cast with the goal of giving them a new playstyle which feels like it could fit into an adventure game whilst bringing something fresh to the table. I aim to demonstrate that the Sonic series can excel when it uses its characters properly. Additionally, I have forbidden the use of any 2D section for these playstyles, as I firmly believe the adventure games prove Sonic can work in full 3D. For today's video, we will be discussing the abilities of the Ultimate Life Form.
Let me show you the ultimate speed!
Shadow has had a decent number of playable roles throughout his history. His debut in Sonic Adventure 2 featured him as a clone of Sonic within the gameplay, but even then it was clear Shadow had the potential to be something more than that. In later appearances, he would shift between being nearly identical with Sonic to having quite experimental gameplay. My plan for Shadow's new playstyle is to have him be considered as a harder character compared to Sonic, but also not have him play identically to him so that neither character invalidates the other. To this end, I will be taking some inspiration from Shadow's more experimental moments, whilst not fully losing his roots in fast-paced gameplay. We will be using the Xbox controller as a reference for control schemes in this video. Shadow can be moved about by using the left thumbstick. He has a very brief acceleration period before reaching his top speed, however by gently moving the thumbstick he can intentionally be restricted to a slower movement speed. He can turn whilst maintaining his speed, but if he's going fast and a sharp turn is made, Shadow will have to skid to a halt before repositioning. Effectively, he controls like he did in Sonic Adventure 2, and should be just as responsive as he was in that game. Pressing the A button will cause Shadow to jump. This again is intended to work much like it did in SA2. His jump will hurt enemies on contact and interact with items. It should be slightly floaty in order to enable the player some time to position themselves for platforming, which is how it worked in the adventure games. Moving through the air should not be stiff. A jump should allow the player to land facing whatever direction they would like. Pressing A again in the air does not perform the homing attack. Instead, Shadow will perform the Chaos Snap technique, where he warps to the nearest target. Upon reappearing, he will hit the target and bounce upwards just like the homing attack. Despite the visual difference, Shadow's Chaos Snap also has a few mechanical differences to the homing attack. For a start, Chaos Snap has a longer lock-on range than Sonic's homing attack. More importantly, since Chaos Snap is a teleport, Shadow cannot be hurt whilst he is in its animation. This feature can be used creatively by designers to challenge players. For example, there could be a wall of electricity that the player needs to pass through, and an enemy on the other side. Touching the wall usually hurts Shadow, but using Chaos Snap will allow him to cross safely. Whilst on the ground, pressing the X button will cause Shadow to perform a 3-hit combo, much like he had in his own game, except this time, the hitboxes don't suck. When done in the air, however, Shadow will perform his melee mash attack from Sonic 06. This allows players to choose if they want to keep doing regular Chaos Snaps, or activate the mash attack on stronger enemies without accidentally misinputting commands. Pressing the Y button on the ground allows Shadow to interact with certain objects. This could be as simple as flipping a rock onto enemies, or warping through a Chaos Rift on the stage to another location, as some examples. In the air, the Y button becomes Chaos Spear. Tapping Y quickly throws one that deals damage, whilst holding Y charges a larger one which deals more damage and can stun enemies. Shadow will hover in place whilst charging Chaos Spear, just like he did in Sonic 06, however a quick Chaos Spear does not require any halt. At any time, if Y is pressed near a trail of rings, Shadow will perform the Lightspeed Dash. Whilst on the ground, holding the B button will rev up a spin dash. This will mostly operate in the same way as the spin dash I gave Sonic in this series, so make sure you check that out for more information. In short, it operates like the Adventure 1 spin dash, but is less powerful. Unlike Sonic though, tapping the B button will not cause Shadow to roll into a ball. Instead, it will activate the Fire Somersault from Sonic Adventure 2. It retains the ability to break steel containers, and if the jump button is pressed during the somersault, Shadow will perform a trick jump. The button has no function in the air as of now, although I was considering the Black Tornado from Sonic Heroes. Alongside his core controls, Shadow has a variety of gameplay mechanics to help add variety to his playstyle and highlight his unique traits. A rather controversial one is that in this playstyle, the ability for Shadow to wield weapons will return. Despite the backlash his game got, the weapons were not too awful to use. Of course, I'm going to make some improvements. There will not be too many weapons, as Shadow's standard moveset is already sufficient enough. However, the weapons that are included will give the player more options in combat. Shadow will pick up a weapon on the floor by walking over it. Melee weapons do not break, and guns will have ammo. More ammo is automatically picked up when standing over another copy of the gun you are holding. Pressing Y when on the ground and not near an interactable will cause Shadow to drop his current weapon, or switch it with another weapon underneath him. Whilst any weapon is equipped, they replace the X button melee moves. Melee weapons like the Egghorn Lance will have a combo when X is pressed on the ground. If X is pressed in the air, Shadow will do 2 quick slashes instead. Guns, on the other hand, will work just like in Shadow's game. Holding X will cause Shadow to shoot his weapon, and if a valid target is in range, the game will automatically aim at it. In the air, the same thing occurs, except Shadow hovers in place while shooting. In order to aid this mechanic and make it less jarring, Shadow now has the ability to manually lock on to targets. This lock-on feature is activated by clicking in the right thumbstick. It operates like many modern day action game lock-on systems, where a target reticle appears over your current target. Flicking the right stick will cycle through available targets, and pressing the stick again ends the lock-on. Whilst locked on, Shadow will strafe around the target as he moves. Naturally, if you plan to run past the target, you wouldn't lock onto it. Projectile weapons will always aim at the locked on target before anything else, as does the Chaos Spear and even Chaos Snap. For those who felt like they needed a lock on in the past, this system provides that, whilst also allowing it to be toggled off so that it does not impede movement. Rail grinding is another feature that Shadow can take advantage of. His Chaos Snap can lock onto a rail, or Shadow can manually land on top of one. Now, Sonic was also given rail grinding in this series, and I made many improvements to its functionality that you can see in that video. Shadow's will work slightly differently, as the focus for his gameplay is less about flashy tricks. Shadow's rail grinding does not require the player to balance, unlike in SA2. As such, it's more like every other version of grinding. It still has a bit of momentum associated with it though. Shadow will slow down and eventually come to a standstill, so the player can tap the B button to accelerate with a rail trick. Whilst grinding, if the X button is pressed, Shadow will attack with his weapon, either with a melee swipe or firing his weapon. Likewise, if the Y button is pressed, Shadow will throw a Chaos Spear. Due to this, Shadow cannot easily use the in-depth rail swapping controls I had given Sonic. I have a few solutions for this. The main one is a design methodology. Shadow's levels can simply be built around not needing the player to swap rails frequently or in complex ways, as they will likely be busy attacking something anyway. Should this feel limiting, rail swapping could be assigned to the bumper buttons or activate when B is held instead of tapped. Of course, I didn't forget about one of Shadow's most iconic features, his Chaos abilities. Taking inspiration from his own game, Shadow has a Chaos gauge that fills when collecting rings, defeating enemies, and generally earning points. Once the meter is full, he enters his Chaos Boost state, which changes a couple properties. During Chaos Boost, Shadow's guns will have unlimited ammunition, and his melee attacks happen twice as fast. Chaos Spear temporarily summons a swarm of Chaos Spears around a target, much like how his SA2 multiplayer version worked. If the right bumper is pressed during Chaos Boost, Shadow activates the Ancient Light ability from the adventure games. He will dart around hitting any valid targets at high speed, functioning a lot more like Sonic's Team Blast from Heroes. If the right trigger is pressed during Chaos Boost, he performs Chaos Control, which freezes everything except himself for a few seconds. Likewise, if the left trigger is pressed, Shadow activates Chaos Blast, which causes a huge shockwave of damage around Shadow just like in his own game. Chaos Boost drains gradually, and using Ancient Light, Chaos Control, and Chaos Blast will drain big chunks of it on top of that. Points earned during Chaos Boost will help it go on for a bit longer though. Shadow's objective is to reach the goal ring at the end of the stage. Typically, this will involve traversing through a stage that is filled with platforming and timing challenges, a couple of optional areas and secrets, but also a large array of enemy encounters. Yes, Shadow has an emphasis on combat when compared to Sonic. However, my intention is to try and retain as much of the action as possible in stage layouts. Think of them as a sort of middle ground between the SA2 stages and the Team Dark missions in Heroes that try to make levels harder, not just with enemies, but harsher platforming skill checks. A possible inclusion, if there was enough time and resources, would be to give Shadow a mission that uses his motorcycle. Yes, he's faster on foot, but games are supposed to be fun. If this mission were to be included, it should operate somewhat like a mock speed section in that you are always on the move. The bike should be able to drift, and Shadow should be able to shoot some kind of weapon whilst riding. Additionally, it would be cool if the bike could grind on rails, and if it could jump by Shadow doing a quick teleport. Upgrades to Shadow's playstyle were not really my focus, but there are a few possibilities I came up with. New Chaos powers, or upgrades to existing ones, could be acquired in upgrade form. Perhaps Shadow's upgrades could be tied to story progression or earned whenever he collects a Chaos Emerald. He could even start out with no Chaos abilities and the homing attack by default, and will need to get the Emeralds to earn the rest, except for Chaos Spear. Regardless, those were my ideas for how I would bring Shadow back into a unique playable role. I hope you enjoyed it. This video marks the end of my planned SA3 gameplay series. It has been a fun journey, and I'm quite pleased with the results. These 6 characters should hopefully create a memorable experience, but the development of such a title would need to be taken seriously and not rushed. That said, during the course of these videos, numerous viewers have informed me that they hope to see my takes on a wider array of characters. As such, I am happy to announce that I will look into designing some more adventure playstyles for additional Sonic characters. These 6 are the ones I would realistically believe to offer the highest chance of success for a theoretical Adventure 3. The other characters would be nice, but I would want them to focus on a core 6. Thank you for watching my video all the way to the end. What did you think about my SA3 series as a whole, or my vision for Shadow? Let me know in the comments below. Please share these videos to help me generate more discussion about adventure playstyles. Maybe we can even get some changes in place. I hope you have a great day, and see you next time. This is the Mighty Emperor, signing off.